Millionaire abandons fiancée at the altar, but years later, he discovers her raising quadruplets and tries to claim them, only to be stunned by her unexpected response. Before we dive into the story, drop a like and comment number 1 below to let us know where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Anna was in the bridal suite, adjusting her veil, while her best friend Emily tried to comfort her. The ceremony should have already started. "He loves you, Anna. He's just late because he wants everything to be perfect," Emily said, though even she didn't seem entirely convinced. But Anna knew something was wrong. James wasn't the type to be late. She glanced at the clock again, feeling a tightness in her chest. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the priest entered the room. His solemn expression confirmed Anna's worst fears. "I'm sorry, Miss Anna. We've received word that James will not be coming." The words hit Anna like a blow. She felt her legs weaken, but held on to the table. Tears began streaming down her face, smudging her makeup. "This can't be. It must be a mistake," she said, her voice trembling. Without waiting for an answer, Anna ran out of the church. Curious stares from the guests followed her as she rushed down the aisle. The humiliation was overwhelming, but the pain was even greater. When she reached the parking lot, she stopped, desperately searching for James, but he wasn't there. She looked up at the sky, trying to control her tears, but all she could feel was humiliation and pain. Questions flooded her mind like a storm. Why? What did she do wrong? And then she remembered a conversation they had 2 weeks earlier. She vividly recalled the distant expression on his face as he held her hand. "Are you sure you want this?" he asked suddenly, breaking the silence. "Of course I do," Anna replied, confused. "We love each other, don't we?" James hesitated, but eventually smiled. It was a fragile smile, one Anna hadn't recognized as a warning at the time. Back in the present, Anna sat on the curb, her white dress pooling around her. Tears silently rolled down her face. The humiliation and pain were unbearable. She wanted to disappear. Across the street, hidden in a car, James watched her. He held his phone in his hands, replaying his mother's words in his mind. "This marriage isn't what you need, James. Think about your future. This marriage would never work out." He lowered his gaze, struggling with guilt. He knew what he had done was unforgivable, but he didn't have the courage to face Anna, or the expectations everyone had placed on him. Anna wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and made a decision. She would leave. She wouldn't let anyone see her as a victim. Meanwhile, James remained in the car, watching her from afar, knowing that moment was just the beginning of something he could never undo. The day after the disastrous wedding, Anna left the city. There were no goodbyes, no explanations, no confrontations. She simply got on a bus, headed anywhere far away from everything and everyone. With every mile traveled, memories of the previous day crushed her even more. But she knew she had to move forward. Staying wasn't an option. The first few months were tough. Anna rented a small room in an unfamiliar town, started working at a cafe, and tried, day by day, to rebuild her life. But the pain lingered, along with the sense of failure. Everything seemed to crumble until one day, something unexpected changed her life forever. 2 months later, Anna had been feeling strange for weeks. Morning sickness, extreme fatigue, and a constant sense that something was different. She blamed it on stress and the weight of everything she'd been through until, in a moment of doubt, she bought a pharmacy test. That night, in the small bathroom of her apartment, Anna stared at the confirmation. The test was positive. Her heart raced. She felt a mix of fear and joy. Part of her panicked at the thought of raising a child alone, without support, without family nearby. But at the same time, an unexpected sense of purpose took over. This baby was her second chance, a reason to keep going. The days that followed were all about adjustment. Anna scheduled a medical appointment, and reality started to set in. But nothing prepared her for the moment when the doctor, with a kind smile, looked at the ultrasound monitor and said, "Congratulations, Anna. It's 4." She blinked, confused. 4? Quadruplets, the doctor replied calmly. Anna felt the world spin. It was far more than she expected, far more than she thought she could handle. "Will I be able to do this?" she asked, not realizing she'd spoken aloud. The doctor simply smiled. "You'll find that mothers always find a way." With the news of her pregnancy, Anna knew she needed to change everything. Her small room was no longer enough. She saved every penny she earned at the cafe and managed to rent a modest little house on the outskirts of town. It was small, but enough for her and her future children. Meanwhile, people around her began to notice her strength. Even pregnant with 4 babies, Anna worked as much as she could. She balanced her time between medical appointments, her job, and preparing the house. Each small achievement was another step forward in her new journey. But there were hard days, nights when she cried alone, feeling the weight of it all. There were doubts, fears, and that recurring question: if James knew, would he care? She pushed the thought away every time it surfaced, focusing only on what needed to be done. The news of the quadruplets, as shocking as it was, gave Anna newfound strength. She knew that if she had survived what she'd been through, she could face anything. Her children would be her priority, and no one, not even James, could change that. The months passed faster than Anna expected. Between hospital visits and organizing the house, she barely had time to process everything. Then the day arrived. The delivery was complicated, but all 4 babies were born healthy. As Anna held each one in her arms, she felt something she had never experienced before: pure love. That moment erased any lingering doubts. From then on, she knew she would do whatever it took for them. If you're enjoying Anna's journey so far, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in her situation? 5 years passed, and Anna had adapted to life as a single mother of quadruplets. The once quiet house was now filled with laughter, chaos, and toys scattered everywhere. Each of the boys had a unique personality. Lucas was the curious one, always asking questions. Noah was shy, but incredibly affectionate. Liam was the jokester, always making everyone laugh. And Oliver was the little leader, always organizing his brothers in their mischief. The routine was exhausting, but Anna felt fulfilled. She worked tirelessly to provide for her family, juggling multiple jobs. No matter how hard it got, she never complained. Each smile from her boys was a reminder of why she kept going. But life is never predictable. One ordinary afternoon, as she took the boys to the park to play, Anna saw someone she never expected to see. She froze in place, her heart racing. James was there. He was sitting on a bench, talking to someone, but his expression changed when his eyes met Anna's. He glanced at the 4 boys playing nearby, and the resemblance left no room for doubt. The reunion Anna had feared had just happened. Anna froze in place, her eyes fixed on James, while her children played innocently in the playground. He was only a few meters away, but to her, it felt like an eternity. Time seemed to have stopped. James was looking directly at her, but quickly shifted his gaze to the boys running across the grass, laughing and racing to the slide. Their resemblance to him was undeniable. Anna felt her heart race. She needed to leave before James could approach her. Grabbing her bag and trying to hide her nervousness, she called out to the boys. James blinked a few times, trying to find the words to respond, but stayed silent. He knew she was right. He had no excuse. "I need to meet them," he said, breaking the silence. Anna instinctively stepped back. "It's not that simple, James. They don't know who you are." "And why not?" "I'm their father." "Lucas, Noah, Liam, Oliver, let's go. It's time to head home," she said, her voice slightly louder than usual. The boys protested, of course, asking for more time to play, but Anna's firm tone was enough to convince them. They began gathering their toys scattered around the park as Anna urged them to hurry. But before she could take another step, she heard a firm voice behind her. "Anna." She froze. That sound, familiar and heavy with uncertainty, made her stomach churn. Slowly she turned around, meeting James's intense gaze. He looked visibly confused, but there was something else in his expression, a mix of surprise and disbelief. "James," she murmured, trying to sound indifferent but failing miserably. "Are they your kids?" He pointed to the boys, who were still preoccupied with their toys. Anna hesitated, her face growing warm. She knew she couldn't avoid this conversation forever. "Yes, they're my children," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. James took a step closer, his eyes shifting between her and the children. He seemed to process the information slowly. "How old are they?" he asked, though the answer was already obvious. Anna bit her lip, trying to stay calm. 5. James's expression changed. It was as if he had been punched in the stomach. He opened his mouth to say something but closed it again, still trying to absorb the situation. "Are they mine?" The question came out as a whisper. Anna felt the ground disappear beneath her. She had mentally prepared for this moment for years, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to say. She decided to be straightforward. "Yes, James. They're yours." The silence that followed was almost unbearable. James ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture Anna remembered well. He looked back at the boys, who were now watching her with curiosity, sensing that something was happening. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his tone now heavier, a mix of anger and hurt. "You left me, James," Anna said, crossing her arms in an attempt to shield herself. "You walked away without an explanation. I was alone, humiliated, and pregnant. What did you expect me to do?" Those words echoed in Anna's mind, bringing a surge of anger and pain. She stepped forward, looking him directly in the eye. "Father. You have no idea what it means to be a father, James. You weren't there when I spent sleepless nights wondering how to pay the bills. You weren't there when I had to care for 4 babies at the same time, all on my own. Father, don't make me laugh." James swallowed hard, but stood his ground. He knew Anna was right, but he couldn't let the conversation end there. "I know I made a mistake, but that doesn't change the fact that they're my children too. I have the right to know them, Anna." Anna let out a bitter laugh. "You gave up that right the day you left me at the altar." While the two argued, Lucas, the most curious of the quadruplets, approached and tugged on his mother's dress. "Mommy, who is this man?" he asked, his big brown eyes sparkling with curiosity. Anna looked down at her son, her heart sinking. Before she could answer, James knelt in front of the boy, his face softening for the first time since he approached. "Hi there, champ. My name is James," he said, offering a hesitant smile. Lucas tilted his head, studying the stranger. "Do you know my mommy?" James chuckled lightly, glancing at Anna before replying, "Yes, I do." Anna took a deep breath and gently nudged Lucas away. "Go play with your brothers, sweetheart. Mommy will be there soon." Lucas hesitated, but eventually obeyed. Anna turned back to James, her stern expression returning. "You can't just show up and expect everything to be resolved. That's not how this works." James shook his head. "I'm not asking to fix everything right now, but I'm not going away, Anna. Not this time." Anna felt a wave of panic. She knew James wasn't the kind of man who gave up easily. After that day, Anna returned home with the boys, her heart heavy. As she tucked them into bed, she couldn't stop thinking about what would come next. As much as she wanted to protect her children, she knew it would be impossible to keep James away now that he knew the truth. Across town, James sat in his luxurious apartment, staring out the window. He thought about the boys, about Anna, and about how things could have been different if he had made another choice years ago. For the first time in a long time, he felt the need to make things right. What do you think? Should Anna give James a chance to know his kids? Drop a like and share your opinion in the comments below. Anna barely had time to recover from the unexpected reunion with James when, just a few days later, there was a knock at her door. She opened it, and there he was again. This time, he looked even more determined, his expression a mix of regret and resolve. "Anna, we need to talk," he said bluntly. "We have nothing to talk about, James," she replied, crossing her arms. "I'm not leaving until we do." The tension between them was palpable, and Anna knew she couldn't avoid the conversation forever. Before she could close the door, Lucas appeared in the hallway, watching curiously. "Mommy, it's the man from the park." Anna tried to smile at her son, but James seized the moment. "Hi there, champ," he said, kneeling to Lucas's height. "My name is James." Lucas tilted his head, intrigued, but Anna quickly intervened. "Lucas, go back to your room, sweetheart. Mommy will be there soon," she said firmly. Once Lucas left, she turned to James, her irritation clear. "You can't just show up here and talk to them, James." "Anna, they're my children. I have the right to know them," he retorted, his voice steady. "Right." She let out a bitter laugh. "You gave up that right when you left me at the altar. I raised these boys on my own. You don't know what it's like to lose sleep, to sacrifice everything for them. And now you think you can just show up as if nothing happened." James took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep his composure. He knew Anna was right in many ways, but he also knew he couldn't walk away. "I know I made a mistake. I'm not trying to justify what I did. But it doesn't change the fact that they're my children too." Anna's heart tightened. She wanted to protect them from everything, but she also knew James wasn't the kind of man who would back down easily. "What do you want, James?" she asked, exhausted. "I want to know them, to spend time with them. Is that too much to ask?" He looked at her with genuine intent. "It is too much. They don't even know who you are, and I'm not going to let you disrupt their lives," she replied firmly. James remained silent for a moment, then said what Anna feared most. "If you don't give me this chance, I'll take it to court." The words hit Anna like a blow. The silence that followed James's departure from Anna's small house was almost deafening. He had made it clear that if she didn't allow him to be part of the boys' lives, he would use every legal resource available to him. Anna tried to stay calm, but she knew what was coming would be a difficult battle. Days later, the summons arrived. James had filed a lawsuit for joint custody. Anna felt the ground disappear beneath her. Her first reaction was outrage. He had been absent for 5 years, and now he wanted parental rights. It made no sense to her. Desperate, Anna sought help. The first person she turned to was Sophie, her longtime friend and an experienced attorney. Sitting in Anna's small kitchen, they discussed her options. "Anna, we need to be realistic. He has money, resources, and a powerful legal team. But you have something he doesn't: a history of dedication. You've been there for the boys every single day," Sophie said, reviewing the summons document. "And what if that's not enough?" Anna asked, clutching a coffee cup with trembling hands. "It will be. We'll fight with everything we've got. The first step is building your defense. We'll gather evidence, testimonies, whatever it takes to show that you're the best person to care for them." Anna nodded, but the weight of the looming battle still pressed heavily on her. She knew she had to protect her children at all costs. When the initial hearing arrived, Anna entered the courtroom with Sophie by her side. On the other side, James stood with his lawyer and, to her surprise, Margaret, his fiancée. A wave of anger surged through Anna as she saw her. Margaret looked perfectly at ease, as though this were just another social event. James's lawyer opened the arguments. He emphasized that James had the resources to provide the boys with a better life: quality education, financial stability, and a secure environment. As he spoke, Anna felt her chest tighten. The words were polished and well rehearsed, but she knew the reality was far from what they claimed. When it was Sophie's turn, she spoke confidently. "Your Honor, my client has dedicated her life to her children. She raised them on her own, facing hardships that most would struggle to endure. Mr. James may have financial means, but Miss Anna has something far more valuable, an emotional bond built through years of love, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication." The judge listened carefully to both sides, and after the hearing, decided that further investigation was needed before reaching a decision. He ordered a social worker to visit both Anna's and James's homes to evaluate the living conditions. After the hearing, James approached Anna in the hallway. He looked tired, but determined. "I don't want to take the boys away from you, Anna. I just want to be part of their lives," he said calmly. "You say that now, but taking this to court was your idea. That's not the action of someone who wants to resolve things peacefully," she replied, her anger barely concealed. Margaret appeared behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We're just trying to make sure the boys get what they deserve," Margaret said with a cold smile. Anna's blood boiled. "What they deserve is stability and love, things I've always given them. I don't need advice from you, Margaret." Without waiting for a response, Anna turned and walked away, doing her best to ignore the sinking feeling that this battle was far from over. If you think Anna's fight is inspiring, give us a like and comment #1 to show your support for her strength. In the days that followed, the tension grew. Margaret's presence became more intrusive. At first, she started showing up at the boys' school events, always impeccably dressed, smiling at other parents, and trying to befriend the teachers. Then, rumors began circulating that Anna was a negligent mother, clearly a narrative spread by Margaret. Let's have a little fun with those who only read the comments. Type pizza in the comments. Only those who get this far will understand. Now, let's continue the story. The situation worsened when the rumors reached the media. Articles began to appear, portraying James as a devoted father, trying to make up for lost time, and Anna as an uncooperative mother refusing to share parenting responsibilities. Anna felt the sting of public judgment, but refused to give up. Sophie, however, noticed that Margaret's interference went beyond simple gossip. During a conversation with Anna, she shared her suspicions. Margaret isn't just trying to help him. She has something to gain from this. James might not see it, but she's manipulating the situation to ensure you lose the boys, Sophie said. "Do you think she wants more than that?" Anna asked, surprised. "I'm certain. If she can push you out of the picture, she'll have James completely under her control. This is more about power than love," Sophie affirmed. Anna knew Sophie was right. Margaret was dangerous, and underestimating her would be a mistake. The social worker's visit was another tense moment. Anna prepared her home meticulously, ensuring everything showed how happy and well cared for her children were. During the interview, the boys spoke openly about their routines, the games they played, and the love they received from their mother. The social worker seemed impressed with Anna's dedication, but Anna knew he would also visit James. At James's home, the scene was very different. Margaret had arranged everything to appear perfect. The children's room was spotless, filled with expensive toys the boys had never seen before. During the interview, James tried to appear relaxed, but Margaret's controlling demeanor and rehearsed answers caught the social worker's attention. Her behavior raised suspicion. When the report arrived, no final decision had been made, but Anna felt a small victory in realizing the truth about Margaret was beginning to surface. Even so, the pressure didn't let up. James continued to insist he wanted to be part of the boys' lives, while Margaret did everything she could to undermine Anna. The battle was far from over, and Anna knew she would need all her strength to protect her children. The day of the trial had arrived, and Anna hadn't slept the night before. She worried about the boys, their future, and what lay ahead. When she arrived at the courthouse with Sophie by her side, she took a deep breath as she noticed the packed room. Dozens of eyes turned toward her, but Anna stood firm. She couldn't show weakness now. On the other side of the room, James sat beside Margaret and his lawyer. He appeared calm, but Anna knew he was nervous too. Margaret, however, exuded confidence. Her posture, her gaze, everything about her seemed to declare that she had already won the battle. The judge began the hearing by reviewing the report submitted by the social worker. Anna listened intently as Sophie presented her defense, highlighting the years of dedication Anna had given as a single mother. It was a story of sacrifice and unconditional love, something Anna knew to be her deepest truth. But when James's lawyer began speaking, the tone shifted entirely. He argued that James had the means and resources to provide the boys with a better life, painting a picture of stability, comfort, and opportunity, things he claimed Anna couldn't offer at the same level. As she listened, Anna felt a lump form in her throat. She knew James's argument was strong, but she also knew the emotional bond she shared with her children was something money could never buy. When it was James's turn to be questioned, Sophie stood, adjusting her blazer. She started with direct questions. "Mr. James, could you tell us why you chose to walk away from Anna 5 years ago?" James hesitated. The silence in the room became almost tangible before he finally answered. My mother convinced me it wasn't the right time. She said the marriage would be a mistake, that I needed to focus on my career." A murmur spread through the spectators in the courtroom. Anna felt her face flush with anger. James's words confirmed what she had feared. He hadn't made the decision alone. Sophie didn't waste time, pressing further. "So, you left Anna at the altar because your mother influenced you. Is that correct?" James took a deep breath, visibly uncomfortable. "Yes, but the final decision was mine. I listened to what she said." Sophie held his gaze firmly before continuing. "And Margaret, did she have any involvement in that decision?" James blinked, caught off guard by the question. He glanced at Margaret, who maintained a neutral expression, though there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. He shook his head. Margaret had nothing to do with it. Sophie stepped back, but Anna felt there was more to uncover. The mention of Margaret had left a tension in the air, something no one seemed ready to address at that moment. When Anna took the witness stand, the atmosphere shifted again. She spoke about the sacrifices she had made, how she had raised the boys alone without support, and the love she had for them. "I've done everything I could to give my children a happy and safe life. I may not have much, but I've always given them my all. These boys are the reason I keep going, every single day." Anna's words brought tears to the eyes of several people in the courtroom. Even James seemed shaken, but Margaret appeared restless, whispering something to James's lawyer. Sensing the growing tension, the judge called for a recess. When the session resumed, Sophie requested to call a new witness. The courtroom doors opened, revealing a figure Anna hadn't seen in years. Evelyn, the former housekeeper for James's family. She walked in slowly, supported by a cane, but with a determined look in her eyes. James tensed visibly, while Margaret averted her gaze. Evelyn took the stand and began to speak. She recounted her 20 years of service with James's family and described what she had witnessed in the days leading up to the wedding. Her voice was calm, but her words carried immense weight. James's mother manipulated the entire situation. She convinced him that Anna wasn't good enough for their family. She used his fears against him, saying the marriage would ruin his career, and that Anna didn't have the social standing they expected. The revelations caused a stir in the room. Anna felt her heart tighten as she listened. Though she had always suspected as much, hearing the confirmation hurt more than she had expected. Evelyn continued, detailing the conversation she overheard and how James's mother controlled every aspect of his life. But then, Evelyn paused before revealing something even more shocking. Margaret was involved too. She was close to James's mother and supported the idea that he should stay away from Anna. She encouraged his decision. The silence in the room was immediately broken by murmurs. James turned to Margaret, stunned. He seemed to struggle to process what he had just heard. "That's not true!" Margaret exclaimed, standing abruptly. The judge banged his gavel, calling for order. James turned to Margaret, his eyes filled with doubt. "You knew about all this?" he asked, his voice low but heavy with disbelief. Margaret tried to deny it, but the nervousness in her expression betrayed her. The witness was dismissed, but the impact of her words lingered. The session was adjourned so the judge could review the new information. Anna left the courtroom with Evelyn by her side, trying to process everything that had happened. The weight of years of pain seemed to finally be acknowledged, but she knew the fight wasn't over yet. Across the hall, James stood frozen. He looked lost, as if the ground had crumbled beneath him. Margaret tried to pull him away, but he brushed her off, clearly shaken. As Anna walked away, she heard Margaret arguing with James. The words were muffled, but she could tell things were falling apart between them. Despite the relief of seeing the truth begin to surface, Anna knew the battle was far from won. Do you think James will change after learning the truth? Hit the like button and share your predictions in the comments below. After the upheaval in court, things began to shift. James was different, and Anna couldn't ignore it. He started showing up regularly for supervised visits, always bringing something special for the boys. It wasn't always expensive toys, but thoughtful items that showed genuine effort. A book Lucas loved, a soccer ball for Liam, colored pencils for Noah, and a puzzle that fascinated Oliver. At first, the boys were cautious, but James's patience began to pave the way for a genuine connection. He listened to them, joined in their games, and even sat on the floor to help build puzzles or draw pictures. Anna watched from a distance, always alert, but she couldn't deny the boys' laughter was genuine and unguarded. One afternoon, James brought a kite to teach the boys how to fly it. Anna couldn't help but watch more closely. The wind was perfect, and the boys ran across the park, trying to keep the kite in the air as James cheered them on. Liam, always the most competitive, managed to keep it flying the longest and shouted with joy. James gave him an enthusiastic hug, and Anna saw something she never thought she'd witness. James genuinely looked happy. As the weeks went by, Anna saw that James's efforts weren't fleeting. He began taking an interest in the boys' daily lives, asking about their classes, friends, and even their small struggles. He took Noah to an art class, encouraged Oliver as he mastered tricky new words, and celebrated Lucas's progress in a math game. These moments weren't grand, but they showed that James was genuinely present. Despite this, Anna remained cautious. She knew that no matter how committed James seemed, there was a history of disappointments that couldn't be ignored. Even so, it was impossible not to notice the transformation. One evening, while tidying up the kitchen after dinner, James approached and began helping her in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost a whisper. "Thank you for letting me be part of their lives, Anna. I know it's more than I deserve." Anna paused for a moment, holding a plate in her hand. She wanted to say something sarcastic, something to remind him there was still a lot to make up for. But when she looked at him, she saw sincerity. He wasn't the confident, arrogant James she once knew. He was a man trying to do the right thing, even if it was too late. "They're happy. That's what matters," she replied, turning back to the sink. But deep down, she knew she was happy too, seeing her children smile. As time passed, James's presence became natural for the boys. Lucas was the first to call him Daddy, spontaneously during a game. James froze, clearly moved, but he didn't make a big deal of it. He simply smiled and continued playing ball with them. Soon, the others followed Lucas's lead, and Anna realized something genuine was happening. Even with this growing bond, Anna didn't lose her independence. She continued to care for the boys on her own, ensuring her role as their mother was respected. To her surprise, James seemed to understand this and never overstepped the boundaries she set. He helped, but never interfered. One particularly peaceful evening, James brought a photo album. He handed it to Anna, explaining that it contained moments from his childhood that he wanted to share with the boys. Anna flipped through the album as James explained each photo, and the boys listened intently. It was a simple moment, but it showed Anna that James was trying, not just with the boys, but also with her. While all this unfolded, Margaret refused to accept the new dynamic. After the revelations in court, she had lost much of her influence over James, and it left her furious. It wasn't just the rejection that stung. It was the public humiliation. She couldn't stand seeing James build a new relationship with Anna and the boys while she was pushed aside. Margaret began plotting her next move. For weeks, she gathered information, pulling strings behind the scenes to create a plan that would shatter the fragile peace forming between them. In her mind, Anna was to blame for everything, and the boys were obstacles she needed to eliminate to win James back. As Anna and James started building something close to friendship, and the boys grew accustomed to their father's presence, Margaret made her move. One day, Anna received a call from an unknown number. On the other end, a cold voice said, "You think this peace will last? Just wait and see what's coming." Anna knew exactly whose voice it was. Her heart raced, but she refused to show fear. She hung up without responding and returned to the living room, where the boys were playing with James. She knew Margaret wouldn't give up easily, but this time, Anna was ready to fight. Meanwhile, Margaret continued scheming, determined to disrupt the relationship between James, Anna, and the boys. To her, the court's decision was only temporary, and she was prepared to do whatever it took to tear them apart. The days of shared time between James and the boys began to shape a new routine. Anna, ever vigilant, allowed him to spend time with the children under her supervision. James never complained about the conditions she imposed. He seemed genuinely determined to prove he could be a steady presence in their lives. At first, Anna kept an emotional barrier firmly in place. She watched James interact with the boys, always on the lookout for signs that he might leave again. But over the weeks, it became increasingly clear that James was making a genuine effort to be different. He didn't just play with the boys. He paid attention to the little things. He helped Lucas build a robot for a school project, taught Liam how to kick a ball with precision, encouraged Oliver to overcome his fear of heights at the playground, and praised Noah's drawings, carefully storing them in a folder he always carried with him. One afternoon, while the children played in the backyard, James offered to help Anna with dinner. She hesitated at first, but eventually gave in. He seemed clumsy, chopping vegetables, but he didn't give up. "I never pictured you in the kitchen," Anna said, not hiding her tone of irony. James laughed, continuing to chop the carrot inefficiently. "I know. Honestly, I've never had to do this before, but I think it's time I learn, don't you?" Anna watched him for a moment, before returning to stir the pot. There was something different about him, something she couldn't ignore. As much as she wanted to keep her guard up, she couldn't deny that his simple gestures and patience with the boys were starting to change her perspective. That same evening, James surprised everyone by pulling out a guitar he had brought along. He sat on the couch with the boys gathered around him and began to play. The notes were simple, but precise. He sang a children's song that made the boys laugh, especially when he messed up the lyrics halfway through. Standing in the kitchen doorway, Anna caught herself smiling despite herself. It had been a long time since she had seen her children so relaxed and happy. Over the weeks, the boys began to bond with James in ways Anna hadn't anticipated. Liam, always the most reserved, started asking when his father would return as soon as he left. Noah, the artistic one, loved showing his drawings to James, while Lucas asked him to play video games almost daily. Oliver, still shy, followed James closely, mimicking his gestures as if he wanted to be just like him. The change was undeniable, But Anna continued to wrestle with her own emotions. Part of her was happy to see the boys creating memories with their father, but another part of her still feared it could all fall apart. James seemed to have changed, but was this transformation permanent? Could she ever forgive him and let him get closer? One morning, while they were at the park, James sat beside Anna on a bench. The boys were running around, tossing a frisbee to each other. He sighed and looked at her with a serious expression. "Thank you for letting me be here, Anna. I know it wasn't easy to give me another chance." She kept her eyes on the boys but responded honestly. "It's not about trust, James. It's about them. They need stability, and I can't risk you disappearing again." James nodded, understanding. "I get it. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." As much as she wanted to doubt him, Anna realized that so far, he had kept every promise he made since returning. Maybe, just maybe, he was truly committed to being a present father. One evening, while putting the boys to bed, James sat on the floor of their room, holding an old photo album he had brought. The children were curious to learn more about their father's childhood, and he seemed eager to share. "When I was a kid, I loved building things," he began, flipping through the album. "One time, my dad gave me a toy toolbox, and I spent weeks trying to build a little house in the backyard. Of course, it collapsed after the first rain, but it was the most fun I'd ever had." The boys laughed, and Lucas asked, "Can you build something with us, Dad?" James smiled. "Of course. We can start next weekend." As he continued sharing stories, one particular memory caught Oliver's attention. James showed a picture of himself with a building toy, and Oliver was captivated. He began asking questions about how the toy worked, and James patiently explained every detail. From the doorway, Anna watched the sparkle in Oliver's eyes and felt the weight of a special moment forming. After the boys fell asleep, Anna stepped in to turn off the lights. James was still sitting on the floor, looking at the album with a nostalgic smile. "Thank you for this," he said without looking up. "They're giving me something I didn't know I needed." Anna didn't respond immediately. She just nodded and left him there as she walked out of the room. Yet, deep down, she knew something within her was shifting too. Maybe it was time to reconsider what she had thought impossible, forgiving him. The next morning, James arrived with tools and materials to build a small wooden playhouse with the boys. The backyard was soon filled with laughter, and the clumsy sound of hammering as the four of them worked together. From the porch, Anna couldn't help but smile. This was more than just a project. It was a symbol of something bigger that was taking shape. Despite all the progress, Anna still held back. She knew Margaret wasn't completely out of the picture, and that something could happen at any moment to disrupt the fragile peace they were beginning to build. But for now, she chose to enjoy the present. That night, as the boys slept, Anna reflected on all the changes over the past few weeks. James was no longer the man she had known years ago. He still had flaws, but he seemed genuinely committed to being an active part of his children's lives. Perhaps it was time to lower her guard, at least a little. Meanwhile, Margaret, furious about the growing closeness between James and Anna, continued plotting her next move. To her, this strengthening bond was a direct threat to everything she had built with James. This time, she was determined not to lose. If you're rooting for Anna and the boys, give us a like and comment number 1 to let us know your Team Anna. The days unfolded with a new dynamic in Anna's home. She and James had unexpectedly reached a friendly coexistence. While emotional barriers still lingered, their conversations felt more natural, and the moments they shared with the boys revealed that something was changing. Unlike before, James showed patience and genuine effort to be a present figure without forcing his way in. One afternoon, as Anna prepared lunch, James walked into the kitchen, holding an envelope. "Anna, can I talk to you for a moment?" She looked at him, still guarded, but nodded. He placed the envelope on the counter without speaking at first. When he finally did, his voice was calmer than she expected. I know I've refused to help in the past, but this time is different. I want you to accept this, he said, sliding the envelope toward her. Anna opened it and found a check inside. The amount was significant, enough to cover months of bills and expenses for the boys. She immediately shook her head. James, I don't need this. I've always managed to take care of them on my own, and I'll keep doing so. He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, but his gaze remained steady. I know you can, Anna. I know how hard you've worked to give them everything. But this isn't just about money. It's about me truly being part of their lives. I don't want this to be a burden for you. She remained silent for a moment, considering his words. The old version of James would have offered the money arrogantly, as if it were a solution to all problems. But now, there was something different about him. It wasn't condescension. It was humility. I'll think about it, she finally replied, folding the check and placing it back in the envelope. James accepted her response without pressing, something that surprised Anna. He was indeed learning to respect the boundaries she had set. As the weeks went by, James's efforts became increasingly evident. He wasn't just helping financially. He was actively involved in the boys' daily lives. He took them to school, helped with homework, and even learned from Anna how to handle the small crises of everyday life, tantrums, or broken toys. For Anna, it was surprising to see someone who once seemed so distant now so engaged. One evening, after a long day, James and Anna sat on the porch while the boys slept. The moon softly illuminated the backyard, where the tools from building the wooden playhouse still lay scattered. You know, I never imagined I'd be here, James said, breaking the silence. Anna glanced at him, curious. What do you mean? Here. With you. With them. For years I was so focused on work, on other people's expectations, that I didn't see what really mattered. Now that I'm trying to make things right, I keep asking myself why it took me so long. Anna crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. Sometimes, we only realize what matters when we've almost lost everything. James nodded, but there was something more in his expression. He hesitated before continuing. Anna, I need to tell you something about what happened at the altar. She felt her body tense. For years, she had carried the pain of that day, and while some wounds had begun to heal, others still hurt. Even so, she nodded, signaling for him to continue. My mother didn't just convince me to call off the wedding. She also— He paused, taking a deep breath. She threatened to cut off all financial support. She said if I married you, I'd be on my own. Anna blinked, surprised. So, you left me because you were afraid of losing her money? It wasn't just the money, he quickly responded. It was everything. She controlled every aspect of my life. I was a coward, Anna. I didn't want to face it, so I ran. I know none of this excuses what I did, but you deserve the truth. Anna felt a mix of anger and understanding. The pieces were finally falling into place. But that didn't make the memory any less painful. You should have told me back then, she said, her voice heavy with emotion. We could have faced it together. I would have stood by you. I know, James said, his eyes full of regret. But I was young and stupid. I made the wrong choice, and I pay for it every day. The silence between them was heavy, but Anna felt something inside her crack. It wasn't the kind of truth that erased years of hurt, but it was a step. A small step, perhaps, but a step. She looked at him. Inside, I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you, James. But at least now I know what really happened. He nodded, accepting her words humbly. That's all I can ask for. The next morning, as the boys ran to hug James when they saw him arrive, Anna watched from a distance. For the first time in years, she felt that something was genuinely changing for the better. There was still a long road ahead, but maybe, just maybe, this family was finally starting to come together. The courtroom was packed once again. Anna arrived early, gripping Sophie's hand tightly, her attorney and friend. She took deep breaths, trying to stay calm. Since learning the truth about being abandoned at the altar, she felt less adrift, but still wasn't ready to fully forgive James. The tension between them had eased, but the weight of the legal battles still pressed heavily on her shoulders. James arrived, accompanied by his lawyer. There was something different about him that day. He seemed more serious, more focused. He wasn't the same man Anna had known years ago. Margaret, on the other hand, was noticeably absent. Her absence was significant, though no one seemed to question why. Anna assumed that after the previous revelations, Margaret had chosen to step back to avoid further humiliation. The judge entered, and the hearing began. Both sides' lawyers presented their closing arguments. Sophie, always sharp, emphasized the emotional bond Anna had built with the boys and how she had been the only consistent parental figure in their lives. James's lawyer, on the other hand, argued that he was now committed to being a present father and that his involvement was essential for the children's development. When James was called to testify, Anna watched him closely. He spoke calmly, admitting his mistakes and taking responsibility for his choices. He acknowledged Anna's doubts, but expressed his determination to earn her trust and that of his children. "I don't expect Anna to forgive me right away," he said, "but I'm here because I want to be the father my children deserve, and I won't give up on them." James's words echoed through the room. Anna felt a wave of emotion, but didn't let it show. It was still hard to fully believe in his intentions, but he seemed sincere. When it was Anna's turn to speak, she stood, adjusting her dress with trembling hands. Her voice, however, was steady. "For 5 years, I've been everything my children had. I raised them on my own, facing challenges only a single mother could understand. They are my absolute priority, and I will always do what's best for them. If that means allowing James to be part of their lives, I'm willing to consider it. But let me be clear, my trust will not be given freely." The judge listened attentively, weighing both sides' statements. After a few hours of deliberation, he returned with his decision. Primary custody will remain with Miss Anna. However, Mr. James will be granted regular visitation and active participation in the children's upbringing. Both parents are expected to work together to ensure the well-being of their children. Anna felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. It was the most balanced decision, but she still worried about what it would mean in the long term. James, on the other hand, seemed grateful. He looked at Anna with a small smile, which she returned with a brief nod. After the hearing, as everyone was leaving the courtroom, Margaret appeared unexpectedly. She stood with a serious expression, her eyes fixed on James. "Do you really think you can be this perfect father now?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. James met her gaze, his expression calm. "I'm going to try, and that's what matters." Margaret laughed, but there was bitterness in her voice. "Good luck with that. You're on your own now." She turned and walked away, making it clear she was done with this chapter. For Anna, it was a relief to see her go. Without Margaret's interference, things could finally move forward without manipulation or drama. Later that same day, James went to Anna's house. He wanted to see the boys, but he also felt the need to speak with her. When he arrived, the boys greeted him with hugs, already accustomed to their father's presence. Anna, however, stood in the kitchen, quietly observing from a distance. After the kids went to their room, James approached. He seemed hesitant, but determined. "Anna, can I talk to you?" She nodded and led him to the living room. They sat on the couch, and he began to speak. "I want to thank you for letting me be part of the boys' lives. I know it hasn't been easy for you, but there's something else I need to say." Anna frowned, both curious and cautious. "What is it?" James took a deep breath before answering. "I still love you. I always have. I know it's too late to say this, but I needed you to know." Let's have some fun with those who only read the comments. Type milkshake in the comments. Only those who make it this far will understand. Now, let's get back to the story. His words caught Anna off guard. She stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. For years, she had carried the pain of his abandonment, but also traces of the love she had once felt for him. Hearing this now left her conflicted. "James, I don't know what to say," she replied honestly. "A lot has happened. This isn't something that words alone can fix." "I know," he said with a sad smile. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. And if one day you're ready to think about something beyond what happened, I'll be here." Anna stayed silent, and James didn't push. He stood, said goodnight, and left. As he walked away, Anna felt a mixture of emotions. On one hand, she was relieved to finally hear the truth. On the other, she knew there was still so much to process. She looked at the boys playing in their room and decided that, for now, she would focus on them. James was trying to make amends, and maybe, in the future, she could consider what he had said. But for now, her priority remained protecting and raising her children. Months passed since the final hearing, and Anna and James's routine had taken on a new shape. He was increasingly present, not just in the boys' lives, but also in Anna's day-to-day. Their relationship, initially centered on the children, began to evolve slowly. Casual lunches, late-night conversations, and shared moments with the boys became natural, something neither of them had thought possible. One day, during a trip to the park, while the boys played on the slide, James approached Anna. He seemed nervous, something unusual for him. "Anna, I've been thinking," he began hesitantly, "about us, about all of this." She looked at him, waiting for him to continue. "What about this, James? Maybe we should try again. Not for the boys, but because I want to. I want to show you that I can be the man you deserve." Anna was silent for a moment, her eyes fixed on the boys in the distance. The months they had spent together had shown her that James had truly changed. He was more humble, more patient, and despite all the hurt, something inside her felt it might be worth a second chance. "It won't be easy, James," she finally said. "There's a lot we need to work through." He nodded, a small smile on his face. "I know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes." The following months were a fresh start. James and Anna began rediscovering their relationship, now more mature and with the boys as the central focus of their lives. Small gestures became significant. A dinner he cooked after a long day, a message of encouragement she sent when he faced challenges at work, and the simple moments when they laughed together as their children played in the yard. One day, James took Anna and the boys on a picnic in a field of flowers outside the city. It was a sunny day, with a clear blue sky and a gentle breeze. As the boys ran through the flowers, James asked Anna to take a walk with him. He was holding something in his hands but kept it a secret. When they reached a secluded spot with a breathtaking view of the field, James stopped and looked into her eyes. "Anna, you're the person who showed me what true love really is. Not just for me, but for our children. You're the reason I want to be a better man, a better father. I want this second chance to last forever. Will you marry me?" He opened a small box, revealing a simple yet beautiful ring that seemed to reflect the sincerity of his words. Anna felt tears welling up in her eyes. For so long, she had imagined what she would do if something like this ever happened. But now, in this moment, the answer was clear. "Yes, James. I will." The boys, watching from a distance, saw what was happening and ran toward them, shouting with joy. Lucas was the first to ask, "Mommy, are you getting married? Are we going to be a real family?" Anna laughed, kneeling down to hug them. "Yes, my loves, we're going to be a family." In the months that followed, the wedding preparations were filled with laughter and amusing chaos, especially with the boys insisting on helping with everything. The big day arrived in a simple garden, surrounded by close friends and family. The boys played a role in every detail. Lucas carried the rings, Noah decorated with flowers, Liam gave an adorable speech, and Oliver walked Anna down the aisle. When Anna and James exchanged vows, it felt as though the past had finally been laid to rest. They stood before a future they had built together, overcoming every challenge along the way. After the ceremony, the family celebrated with their loved ones. The children ran through the garden while Anna and James danced under strings of lights. He held her close, whispering, "I promise you, Anna, I'll make you and the boys happy every single day of my life." She smiled, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. "We're together now, James, and that's all that matters." That night, before bed, the boys surprised their parents with a special gift, an album full of drawings depicting happy family moments. On the last page, they had written in big, clumsy letters, "Our family is forever." Anna closed the album, holding it to her chest. For the first time in years, she felt that the journey, which had started with so much pain, had led to something beautiful. A family built on love, patience, and the willingness to start over. The story of Anna and James is a roller coaster of emotions that hits you right in the gut. A tale of heartbreak, resilience, redemption, and the messy beauty of second chances. As an American reader, I found myself drawn into Anna's world, feeling the sting of betrayal when James left her at the altar, the quiet strength she summoned to raise 4 boys alone, and the complex mix of anger and hope when he re-entered her life. It's a narrative that mirrors the highs and lows we all face, wrapped in a distinctly human struggle that resonates with anyone who's ever had to rebuild after life knocks them down. What stands out most is how it captures the American spirit of grit, forgiveness, and the belief that it's never too late to rewrite your story. Values I've seen play out in my own life and in the lives of those around me. Anna's journey starts with a punch to the soul, abandoned on what should have been the happiest day of her life. I can't imagine the humiliation she felt, running out of that church with everyone's eyes on her, her white dress dragging through the dirt. Yet, she didn't let that moment define her. Instead, she picked up the pieces and moved to a new town, working tirelessly at a cafe to carve out a life for herself. When she discovered she was pregnant with quadruplets, the stakes got even higher, but so did her resolve. That's the kind of tenacity Americans celebrate. Think of the single moms juggling multiple jobs, or the underdog athletes who defy the odds. Anna's not a superhero. She's just a woman who refused to give up, and that's what makes her so relatable. Her story reminds me of my aunt, who raised 3 kids solo after a messy divorce, scraping by but never losing her smile. It's a reminder that strength isn't loud or flashy. It's in the quiet, everyday choices to keep going. James, on the other hand, starts as the guy you want to hate. He's the millionaire who bails on his fiancée because his mom pulls the strings, leaving Anna to fend for herself. His initial cowardice is frustrating, but it's also human. Who hasn't made a dumb choice under pressure? What's compelling is how he evolves. 5 years later, seeing Anna with their boys flips a switch in him. He doesn't just demand a role, he fights for it, first through the courts and then through consistent effort. That shift, from running away to showing up, speaks to a core American value: redemption. We love a comeback story, whether it's a fallen celebrity staging a revival or a friend who finally gets their act together. James's persistence, bringing kites and photo albums, isn't about grand gestures. It's about proving he's in it for the long haul. It made me think of my old college buddy, who ghosted everyone after a breakup, only to return years later, humbled and ready to mend fences. People can change, and this story dares us to believe that. The tension with Margaret adds a layer of drama that feels straight out of a Lifetime movie, scheming, manipulative, and desperate to keep control. She's the villain you love to root against, spreading rumors and pulling strings to undermine Anna. But her downfall, when Evelyn exposes her role in James's decision, is a satisfying twist. It's a classic American trope. The truth wins out, and the underdog gets justice. Margaret's exit from the story, bitter and alone, reinforces that manipulation might get you short-term wins, but it's authenticity that lasts. I've seen this play out in my own community, where gossipers eventually get called out, and the people who stay real come out on top. It's a lesson in integrity. You can't fake your way into a meaningful life. What really got me was Anna's internal battle over forgiveness. When James confesses he still loves her, it's not a fairy tale moment where everything's fixed. She's torn, understandably so, after years of carrying that hurt. Her hesitation feels authentic. Americans value independence and self-protection, especially after betrayal. But her eventual choice to give him a second chance isn't weakness, it's courage. It's the kind of courage I saw in my parents when they worked through a rough patch in their marriage, choosing to rebuild rather than walk away. Anna's decision to marry James isn't about forgetting the past. It's about building a future with eyes wide open. That's a powerful takeaway. Forgiveness doesn't mean erasing pain. It means choosing growth over grudges. The boys, Lucas, Noah, Liam, and Oliver, are the heart of this story. Their innocence and joy, from flying kites to drawing family pictures, remind us what's at stake. Anna and James's journey isn't just about them. It's about creating a stable, loving world for their kids. As a parent myself, that hits home. I think of the times I've swallowed my pride or pushed through exhaustion for my daughter's sake. The story underscores a universal truth. Family isn't perfect, but it's worth fighting for. The boys calling James Daddy and making that Our Family is Forever album, that's the payoff. The messy, beautiful result of two people choosing to heal. So, what's the life lesson here? For me, it's about resilience, redemption, and the power of showing up. Anna teaches us that you can rise from rock bottom with grit and grace. No excuses, just action. James shows that it's never too late to own your mistakes and make amends. But it takes work, not words. Together, they prove that forgiveness is a choice, not a feeling. And it's worth it when the stakes are love and family. In my own life, I've applied this by letting go of old grudges, like with that college buddy, and focusing on what matters now. I've also learned to keep showing up, whether it's for my kids' soccer games or tough talks with my spouse. Americans value hard work and second chances, and this story embodies both. Practically, I'd say, don't let pride or fear stop you from rebuilding what's broken. If you've hurt someone, own it and put in the effort to fix it, like James did with those small, consistent acts. If you've been hurt, like Anna, give yourself time, but don't close the door on possibility. People can surprise you, and if you're in the middle of chaos, focus on the why. For Anna, it was her boys. For you, it might be your own dreams or loved ones. Life's too short to stay stuck in yesterday. This story isn't just entertainment. It's a mirror. It asks us to look at our own choices, our own capacity for growth. I'd rate it a solid 8 out of 10. Not perfect, but real, raw, and worth the ride. It's a reminder that happy endings aren't handed out. They're built, one stubborn, hopeful step at a time. Thanks for sticking with us through Anna and James's incredible journey. If this story moved you, or made you think twice about second chances, hit that like button and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next emotional ride. Drop a comment below. Do you think Anna made the right call for giving James? We'd love to hear your take. See you in the next video. Stay awesome.